This is the signature project stage 2 for Lane Weaver in the class Seminar and Special Education Issues, University of West Alabama. The problem that I wanted to address in this study is negative behaviors occurring in kindergarten classrooms. The data that I collected prior to the study showed that about 11% of the time students are being penalized with a red point for behaviors that are considered undesirable. I collected this data using the Class Dojo instrument, which I will be using throughout the entirety of the study. You can also see the data categorized in an Excel spreadsheet. This is also provided through the Class Dojo instrument. My hypothesis was that using a positive consequence system will result in improved student behavior in the classroom. This hypothesis is based on research that I did prior to performing the study. I found in my research that negative behaviors can be reduced with positive reinforcement alone, and it is effective in increasing compliance and reducing destructive behaviors. I also found research showing that negative behaviors often present in early grades like kindergarten, and if they persist over time, it results in increased likelihood of negative outcomes and can adversely affect academic achievement. This showed me that the problem that I'm addressing in my study is one that urgently needs to be solved. I also referenced Premack's principle that if an opportunity to engage in more probable behaviors is presented, then the subject is more likely to engage in a less probable behavior. And that information informed my methodology that I'll be using throughout this study. The sampling method and technique that I used was a convenient sampling method, and I used all 18 children in the classroom because I thought it would negate the studies of the results of the studies if some of the children were being treated differently than the others. Children are very perceptive to the fairness of how they are being treated in comparison to others, and I found that if I give points to some of the children some of the time and not give points to some of the other children, it is noticed. The instrument for recording data that I used is called Class Dojo, and it is a well-tested and well-researched electronic behavior management system. The procedure that I followed when performing the study was that each time a student performed a desirable behavior like cleaning up after themselves or completing their work or being helpful with one of their classmates, they would receive a green point on the electronic behavior management system, and I would provide verbal praise. These would be positive consequences. And if they performed an undesired behavior, they would receive only a red point, which is also a positive consequence. It is applying a consequence. The internal validity, the only problem that I predicted could arise is that the students could react differently to the program based on maturity level. And then the external validity, the problem that I predicted most likely occurring would be that students would be withdrawn from school from the middle of the year and that new students could be added to the classroom. And we did end up seeing this problem happen throughout the study. I also thought that potentially parents could negate the legitimacy of the reward system, but I did not happen to come into that problem. Students' identities were protected throughout the study because last names were left out of any report that included student names, and this experiment created little to no risk for the participants. However, parents were informed at the beginning of the school year that I would be using Class Dojo as a positive consequence system, and they were asked to give consent that their students participate in the study. And they did sign the contract at the beginning of the school year with the school system saying that they agreed to their children participating in a positive consequence behavior system. The results that I saw were slightly skewed due to numerous roster changes throughout the school year. You can see in the data on the Excel spreadsheet that a lot of the students at the bottom just recently enrolled in the past month or so, so it caused problems in the data because they didn't receive near as many positive points nor negative points, and so it threw off the results. Also, some of my students that were receiving the majority of the negative red points were two students in particular left in the middle of the school year, and that altered the collection of the data because it took away some of the red points that had been received throughout the school year, throughout the process. The data does show that the negative behaviors reduced by 3% from the beginning of the study, and the action that received the most red points changed from the beginning of the study, where it was damaging school property, to not following directions at the end of the study was the one that got the most points. Again, this data is probably slightly skewed due to the fact that multiple children left throughout the study. I think to see more student achievement growth, we would need to see a significant decrease in the amount of red point students are receiving for not following directions. The changes that I would make to my original plan would be to perform the study on a smaller group of students that I feel confident wouldn't leave in the middle of the school year. I originally thought that it would skew the data if I only performed the study on a smaller group of children, but I think the data itself is more skewed due to the fact that there were so many roster changes throughout the school year. I think that something that could alter student achievement would be if there was more consistency in the classroom and there weren't so many students to leave and come during the school year. One of the students that did leave in the middle of the school year was one that caused quite a bit of disruption in the class, so his presence caused effects on other student behavior, as well as when he left, it caused changes in how the data reflected in the charts.